In the 13th year of the Yuanchen era of the Daliang era, the black sun rose and the blood moon appeared. From then on, spiritual energy revived, supernatural beings became a reality, and a mysterious world emerged in the mist. Zhang Biao awakened his spiritual vision, discerned evil, demons, treasures, and uncovered the mist of immortality keywords of the novel. I have a long life pupil without a pop-up window. I have a long life pupil. Download the complete set of TXT, and I have a long life pupil. The latest chapter for reading. Chapter 1. Black Sun Shines Over the Jade Capital. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Black Sun Shines Over the Jade Capital. How many tails of silver are you playing with? What kind of luck? In the tavern's elegant pavilion, Constable Wang has already drunk quite a bit. Perhaps it was alcohol that made people timid. He held his glass, shook his head, and spoke more casually. Some people say that in the yamen, one cannot avoid taking a dose of heart-washing soup, washing away one's conscience, burning a proclamation, bidding farewell to the heavens, in order to maintain a stable job. The words may sound unpleasant, but there is also some truth to them. Look at your father. The title of soul-summoning divine hunter is well known in the martial arts world. He has been summoned by the nobles like a donkey, working hard and putting in nothing but fame throughout his life. What's the use of having a good reputation? When people leave tea cold, how many people are still selling your father's face? The depth of this capital city is so deep. If you want to stand out, you can catch thieves. As for those imperial relatives, nobles, don't mess with anyone. Across from him sat a young man. Black Rongpao, black Futu, with a straight body, fair face, and tough facial features, carrying a horizontal sword at the waist, and hanging a bronze plaque with the 3 characters, 6 gates, engraved in the sun. The young man was holding his glass, somewhat absent-minded. Biao Zi. Zhang Biao. Upon seeing this, Constable Wang became angry and said, "Have you heard what I said? Let's stop this matter and forget about it." Zhang Biao furrowed his brow and said, "He's just a thug." "That's right, it's just a vulgar thing." Constable Wang interrupted his words and sneered, "But this thug has something to do with the Li mansion. Li Guifei is most favored by saints. If it weren't for the obstruction of various officials, she would have almost become the empress. The Li family is rampant in the capital, not even willing to provoke the Minister of Justice of our Ministry of Justice, and the Dali Temple is pretending to be deaf and mute. Otherwise, how could they send this task to the 6 gates? Your father is the only one you have, and I don't want to see the old man's incense burn out." The chief constable said that if you get injured while practicing, you are allowed a month's paid leave. Zhang Biao gritted his teeth and finally just sighed helplessly. He is not a pedant or stubborn person. Reborn and brought to this Daliang dynasty, he became the son of the Yujing city divine hunter. He had been practicing martial arts since childhood and successfully entered the 6 gates after his father's death, repeatedly solving strange cases. How could he not understand the world? But some things can pretend to be deaf and mute, while others can make people feel angry and restless. Feeling angry in my heart, I became even more agitated when drinking alcohol. Constable Wang sighed, got up, threw down a few coins, and patted his shoulder. "Let's go back and take a nap. I'll get used to it when I see more in the future," he said. "Uncle Wang, don't worry." Zhang Biao nodded. Although Constable Wang's words may sound unpleasant, he is actually a close friend of his father, all of whom are considerate of him. Others may pretend to be deaf and mute, watching him jump into the fire pit. The 2 captains, take your time. Under the courteous greeting of the waiter, the 2 of them left the restaurant in a leisurely manner. After leaving the door, there was a lot of noise in the eyes. Cars and horses shimmer on the street, people are bustling, wine flags stand tall on the street, tea houses and taverns are connected, and various meat fragrances sway in the wind. It is now late autumn, with a clear and refreshing sky. The exquisite and ancient pavilions and towers in the distance are beyond reach. This is Yujing South City, Fang. 300 years ago, Emperor Wu of Liang, Zhao Yan, conquered the south and north, unified the 9 provinces, and built this jade capital, known as the White Jade Capital in the Sky, 108 cities. The 108 city is indeed exaggerated, but it has actually built 108 neighborhoods. In the early days of the dynasty, it appeared spacious, but now it has a population of millions. Prosperity in all industries, mixed with dragons and snakes. It is both a prime location and a city of right and wrong. Seeing that Zhang Biao was in a bad mood, Constable Wang smiled with a strong smile and said, "Don't think about this anymore. The big deal is to marry your wife. It's already 20 years old and still unmarried. In today's prosperous era, the etiquette and laws are relaxed. If you want to postpone the time of Emperor Wu and Emperor Wen, the Jingzhou mansion will take you to work and marry an old widow. Your aunt has conspired with a girl from a family. Although her family is in decline, she is still the gateway to poetry, literature, and clean flow. She will save some silver and have a chubby child. In the future, she will be able to achieve fame and become a martial artist, much stronger than a martial artist." "Ah, what is this?" Before he could finish speaking, he saw a sudden riot on the street. The 2 of them lost their drunkenness and their eyes became sharp. The 6 gates are under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Justice and specialize in dealing with people in the martial arts world. They deal with all the bandits in the Green Forest, and none of them are weak in their skills. If any trouble is caused in this capital city and it is related to people in the martial arts world, they will be guilty of dereliction of duty if they ignore it. However, the sight before them surprised them. On both sides of the streets of various districts and cities in Yujing City, there are open and hidden channels for drainage, connecting 4 canals that pass through the city. In this drainage channel right now, countless mice are gushing out densely, each with shiny and smooth fur, converging into a tide and running around, causing the people to scream in shock. TSK. It's really rare. Constable Wang breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing the situation and shook his head, saying, "The group of mice are wandering the streets in the daytime. If any of the officials have nothing to talk about during their leisure time, Fang Zheng and the Marquis of Wu may be unlucky." Before finishing speaking, the sky darkened. Constable Wang looked up and his eyes suddenly froze. "I saw the autumn sun in the sky, gradually invaded by a round of shadows, and the center quickly became pitch black, leaving only a faint golden wool surrounding. The sky was dark and covered with a layer of blood. The entire Yujing city seems to be soaked in blood. Countless people looked up and watched in terror, even forgetting the mice running around on the streets." Constable Wang murmured, "The black sun is in the sky, and the blood is shining in the city. It's an ominous sign. I'm afraid the court will be in chaos." Meanwhile, Zhang Biao beside him paid no attention to what he said. At this moment, his eyes were full of surprise and his heart was pounding. At the moment when this strange celestial phenomenon appeared, he only felt his eyebrows bulging and a silver eyeball phantom appeared in his mind. Long-lasting memories come to mind. He recognizes this thing. When he died of electrocution in his previous life, he was playing a game that was the protagonist's skill. The eye of spiritual vision. The function is very simple, it is to view objects and obtain the information contained within them. The higher the level, the more information you will receive. Of course, if the object's level is higher than that of the host, the information obtained will also be limited, and it may even be subject to backlash. Why does this thing also come with the soul piercing through? Zhang Biao couldn't figure it out, but he had already started secretly trying. He first stared at the mice passing by on the street, focused, and his silver eyes lit up slightly in his mind, suddenly sending a message. Mouse, Fan, 1. The small things in the sewer, these rodents, with their powerful reproductive ability, spread all over the world. 2. This animal is very fragile, but in some cases, it can also trigger deadly epidemics. 3. They seem to have been frightened. Zhang Biao was speechless, but not surprised. The mouse level is too low, and most of the information obtained is useless. In memory, the more special the item, the more information is obtained. But at the same time, he also noticed an information point. Spread all over the world. Soul-worn for over a decade, he has never left the Jade capital, but he is also familiar with various customs and terrains, similar to the Central Plains in his past life. However, it is said that there are also considerable dynasties on other continents. Is it difficult? Is there another world? Thinking of this, Zhang Biao concentrated his thoughts again and looked at the huge black sun circle in the sky. But in just an instant, his eyes turned red, his forehead swelled, his head seemed to burn, and he quickly lowered his head in fear. Enduring the intense pain, Zhang Biao rubbed his eyes, feeling somewhat puzzled. Isn't it just a solar eclipse? Why can't I view it? Dang! 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 At this moment, the distant bell interrupted his thoughts. On the clock tower at the gate of Fang, 2 Marquis Wu were desperately striking. In the blink of an eye, the bells of each Fang rang out, connecting into one and echoing throughout the city. Constable Wang's face changed and he said, "It's the Jingjia bell. Hurry up. If the gate closes and we're trapped here, your aunt might be in a hurry. Also, the chief constable has asked you to take a vacation. Stay at home for the next few days and don't run around, otherwise you won't be able to find anyone for something." "Uncle Wang, don't worry, I know." The two of them were so fast that they left the gate as soon as they spoke. Arriving on the street, one's eyes were filled with chaos. The street vendors were frantically packing up their goods, and fruits, vegetables, and tattered baskets fell all over the ground. Hu Shang from the western regions desperately drove away camels and even drew his sword, angrily cursing beggars who took advantage of the chaos to steal. Jin Wei marched in a formation holding the gogol, with a murderous aura. The people are running at lightning speed, crying and making noise one after another. Zhang Biao frowned slightly, but it was not surprising. The Daliang dynasty was somewhat similar to the previous era of Chang'an, but there were few curfews on weekdays, and free trade was also allowed in various neighborhoods and cities, making it very prosperous. But there are national laws and regulations for cities. In case of major events, the Jingjia bell will ring. This is a signal to enforce military control, and when the bell rings, all neighborhoods and cities will be closed. Those who are still wandering outside, whether they are ordinary merchants or small and medium-sized officials in the capital, as long as they do not have a passing hand, they will all be arrested and imprisoned, and even if they do not die, they will be stripped of their skin. Since the turmoil in the capital 100 years ago, this rule has been passed down without anyone daring to violate it. Zhang Biao was somewhat puzzled that it was just an abnormal celestial phenomenon, and he had to guard against rumors. Why was it so grand? Upon seeing this, Constable Wang next to him became even more worried and said, "Biao Zi, I'll leave first. It's chaotic and we don't have a backbone at home. Uncle Wang, be careful." The two do not live in the same neighborhood, so they parted ways. Seeing the figure of Constable Wang disappear into the crowd, Zhang Biao also looked around and turned to rush into a dark alley. The Yuanchen Fang where he is located is very far away, and the street is now bustling with chaos. To get back in time, it is necessary to take a shortcut. The alleys in the neighborhood are relatively narrow. This summer, there was heavy rain, waterlogging in the city, and many hundred-year-old walls collapsed. At this moment, scaffolding is being built and repaired because the roads are blocked and people are relatively scarce. Zhang Biao accelerated, stepped on the wall and jumped onto the wooden frame with force, then pressed his body to accelerate, running and jumping like a spirit cat. There is no such thing as true chi in this world, and lightness skills are various techniques for jumping over walls and unloading strength. He combines his family's martial arts skills with his past parkour skills, and with the use of a soul summoning lock, his agile body movements rank high in the entire 6 gates. In less than a stick of incense, the gate of Fang was right in front of me. The patrolling Marquis Wu was banging the gong non-stop. When he saw him, he quickly greeted him and said, "Oh, Constable Zhang, hurry in and don't miss the hour. Xiaoqi, if you have anything to do, please let me know." "Thank you, Captain Zhang." After some pleasantries, Zhang Biao strode into the gate. In the 13th year of the Yuanchen era of the Daliang era, the sky turned black and the city was in chaos. The phenomenon of a solar eclipse has been recorded since ancient times. There are rumors among the people that it is a celestial dog eating the sun, and there are also prophecies that it is a sign of the emperor's immorality and great calamity. And soon, people realized that this was not a solar eclipse at all. The new book set sail. Please support us all. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Divine Eyes Identify Heritage Treasures. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Divine Eyes Identify Heritage Treasures. This is definitely not a solar eclipse. In the courtyard, Zhang Biao looked at the sky, his eyes full of suspicion. The process of a solar eclipse is nothing more than initial loss, complete eclipse, severe eclipse, light generation, and recovery. As the celestial body shifts, it will recover. But this time, it revealed strangeness. Black sun annular eclipse, blood shining in the city, appearing at an extremely fast speed. And now, 2 hours have passed, and the black sun ring not only remains unchanged, but also sinks towards the west, like a sunset. What exactly happened? Thinking of the observation with the eye of Lingshi, Zhang Biao almost suffered a backlash, and his heart couldn't help but be shrouded in a shadow coming into this world. Although there are also legends of supernatural beings in the countryside, most of them are chatting under the trees of the elderly, and few people see them with their own eyes. He worked at Luffenman for 2 years. Although he was not dispatched to do any work, he also reviewed many files, and even the most peculiar cases were human-made. But now, the concept is somewhat wavering. Bang bang. The knocking on the door suddenly sounded, accompanied by an anxious voice. "Captain Zhang, open the door quickly." Zhang Biao frowned slightly and opened the courtyard door. I saw an old man standing outside the door, with a blue robe and white beard, a face full of vicissitudes, and several black-clothed marquises following beside him. The newcomer is Chen Haishan, the founder of Fang. Without waiting for Zhang Biao to inquire, he anxiously said, "Constable Zhang, the trouble is big. The people over at the temple are gathering to burn incense and pray." Zhang Biao's eyelids twitched and he said, "Let's go, take me." After speaking, the few people quickly walked to the center of the neighborhood. The wealthy families in Yujing City are concentrated around the northern imperial city, while the southern city is mostly inhabited by ordinary people, and Fang is one of them. Each city center has a local temple. The lives of ordinary people are difficult, with red and white celebrations, weddings, funerals, and weddings all requiring mutual support in order to continue. The Tudi temple is the place where people gather daily, and the incense is also quite prosperous. At this moment, the outside of the Tudi temple is already surrounded by people. Most of the residents of Fang seem to have left their homes, carrying elderly and young people, offering fruits and even holding fat pigs. Seeing Zhang Biao and Chen Fang approaching, the people suddenly began to make a commotion and chatter. "Sheriff Zhang is here, quickly give us an evaluation. We want to burn incense, but Fang Zheng won't allow it. I have lived for most of my life as an old man, and I have never seen such a scene before. I'm afraid that the heavens will bring disaster." "Shut up." Zhang Biao's face changed slightly and he shouted angrily, "It's just a solar eclipse, what nonsense." He looked in the direction of the imperial city and coldly scanned it, saying, "This summer there was a big flood. Someone spread rumors and beheaded in the western market, exposing their bodies for 3 days. Have you all forgotten?" As soon as these words were spoken, the scene fell silent. When today's sages were young, they were known for their wisdom and decisiveness. They suppressed the rebellion of the three kings and brought peace and prosperity to the country governed by the Liang dynasty, showcasing a prosperous era. But as I grow older, I become more stubborn and self-reliant. I am overjoyed and unable to listen at all. In recent years, many ministers who advised were dismissed from their positions, and good luck continued throughout the country. Even the city was flooded, and it was said that the water was abundant. In today's situation, if one were to be labeled as spreading rumors to deceive the public, they probably wouldn't even be able to save their head. The villagers turned pale and showed signs of retreat. Fang saw the situation and quickly advised, "Let's all go back. Whatever you want to do at home, don't gather here and cause trouble." The local residents understood and dispersed in twos and threes. Fang breathed a sigh of relief and wiped his forehead with a cold sweat. He shook his head and said, "Thank you very much, Captain Zhang. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'll have bad luck." Zhang Biao's words just now were a bit exaggerated. Rumors have emerged in the neighborhood, and the common people may be fine, but after being found out, his neighborhood is absolutely unable to escape. "But this matter," he said, "is of no use. The Zhang family has been doing errands at the 6 gates for generations, occasionally helping the villagers solve problems, which is quite prestigious and convincing when spoken out. No problem, it's better to be careful at this critical moment." Zhang Biao shook his head slightly and looked towards the Tudi temple. He had a movement in his heart, his mind focused, and his spiritual vision was activated. "I used it a few times at home before, looking at the tables and chairs, looking at the courtyard walls, all of which were useless information, and I was so tired that I felt dizzy. Now that you have regained some energy, this earth temple may be a good target for exploration." The eyes of Lingshi flickered, and Zhang Biao immediately noticed something unusual. Just now, checking ordinary items at home may consume energy, but it is easy to obtain information. However, inspecting the Tudi temple made him feel overwhelmed. Is there something strange about this place? Sure enough, after he tried to concentrate, accompanied by a feeling of dizziness, a message came to his mind. Yuanchen Tudi Temple, Yellow Grade 1st Grade, 1. Temples that can be seen everywhere are places for people's weddings, funerals, burning incense, and praying for blessings. They have collapsed and rebuilt multiple times over 100 years. 2. The secular gods in clay sculptures cannot protect sentient beings, let alone withstand wind and rain. Burning incense and praying for blessings only seeks peace of mind. 3. 100 years of incense will always give birth to something. Seeing this, Zhang Biao was immediately excited in his heart. The eye of spiritual vision awakens, and the method of use is also known. Ordinary things, whether they are golden rubble or fierce tigers and rabbits, are all classified as mortal. And further up, there is the dark yellow of heaven and earth, each divided into 9 grades. Yellow grade 1st grade represents having an extraordinary item. Is there any treasure inside? Thinking of this, he pretended to be worried and whispered, "Fangzheng, I feel uneasy and want to go into the temple to burn incense, so that no one can see me." "Oh, don't worry." Fangzheng immediately understood and led him through the side door of the Tudi temple. He even deliberately closed the door and guarded outside. After Zhang Biao entered the hospital, he immediately squinted his eyes and looked around. The Tudi temple is not very large, but a small tiled house was built in the courtyard, with an open door. The wooden couplets on both sides read, "Shi Shanyuan Pu Ji Xiang neighbors, burn incense guests, all things go smoothly." The courtyard is paved with loess and is empty. If there is something, it is mostly inside a tiled house. Zhang Biao's attention was first drawn to the statue of the earth god, his face full of kindness, his long beard hanging down his knees, and he had been influenced by incense for a long time and had turned a bit black. I originally intended to use my spiritual eye, but I remembered the previous message. The earthly gods made of clay cannot protect sentient beings. It seems that the treasure is not this one. Using the eye of spiritual vision can be quite exhausting. After using it several times today, I feel mentally exhausted and cannot act recklessly. Later, he looked at the incense burner again. Previously, the message was, 100 years of incense will always give birth to something. Most likely this is it. Sure enough, the eye of spiritual vision operated and once again felt difficult. In no time, information surged in my mind. Aged fragrant gray, yellow grade first grade, 1. The incense of the Tudi temple continues to burn, accumulating dust into mountains. 2. The Tao is learned from the mind, and the false fragrance of the heart is transmitted. There are no common gods in the temple, and the incense ashes leave residual wishes. They gather and can ward off evil spirits, dispel goo, and break the remnants of ghosts and souls. They have many uses. 3. To use this item, there must be a corresponding method. 4. 100 years of prayer, no matter how much piety, will only turn into ashes. It is indeed incense ash. Look at the information, it's not a tough baby. Moreover, corresponding methods are needed to use it. But he also mentioned the ability to ward off evil, dispel goo, and break through the remnants of ghosts and spirits, which he had never seen before. Is there really any demon or ghost in this world? Although puzzled, how can one return empty-handed? Zhang Biao looked around and found an empty jar filled with water in the corner of the wall. He filled a jar full of incense ash in the stove. After leaving the temple gate and greeting Lao Fangzheng, he held on to the jar and headed straight towards his home door in his puzzled gaze. His yard is on the east side of the neighborhood. Although it is an ordinary residential building, the courtyard is quite spacious, not only with a towering jujube tree, but also with objects such as stone locks and arrow targets placed for practicing martial arts. This is why the Zhang family lives here. Capital residence is not easy. Although it is a 6 gates constable, only a civilian area like Anjan Fang can afford such a spacious courtyard. A courtyard with 2 entrances and over a dozen tiled houses. He has been living alone since his parents passed away. Zhang Biao was also accustomed to this kind of life, carrying the incense ash jar back to the side room, and soon the lights lit up. At this moment, it is already dusk on the western hills. The black sun, adorned with halos, dyed the entire sky red, and the sunset was like a vast expanse of red dragon scales, magnificent and dreamy. Perhaps nothing terrible happened, and coupled with the court sending officials to various neighborhoods to appease them, the people gradually settled down. Zhang Biao casually took a bite of the cold lunch and began studying the incense ash in the jar. Yellow grade first grade, theoretically it should be a treasure. But no matter how he looks, it's just ordinary incense ash. I don't know what method to use this thing. In Yujing City, there is a mix of dragons and snakes. There are both monks and Taoist priests in Taoist temples, as well as witches and gods who help people with affairs privately in various neighborhoods and markets. I used to think that these so-called mysteries were all scammers, but it seems that we still need to pay attention in the future. Thinking of this, he carefully hid the incense ash jar. Perhaps it was the newly awakened eye of spiritual vision, combined with the discovery of incense ash, that made Zhang Biao somewhat excited. He looked around and wanted to find something else to distinguish. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he quickly walked to the back room, jumped onto the crossbeam, and took out a wooden box from the dark compartment. Inside the wooden box, there are several booklets, namely, Soul Saber, Soul Summoning Lock, Soul Chasing Hand, and 3 Yang Classic. This is his family's martial arts. The Zhang family is an ancient family. According to his father, 300 years ago during the chaotic times, he was still a general of an ancient country. Later, the world became stable, wandering in rivers and lakes, experiencing ups and downs, and finally entering the public gate. These martial arts are also extraordinary. The Soul Saber is divided into 34 forms, with a rigorous and coherent technique, a steady body, and a good skill in hiding knives with empty steps. Soul-chasing hand is both a fist technique and a capturing technique, emphasizing the importance of qi starting from the dantian and strength coming from the waist. The fist is yang, the palm is yin, and it is continuous like chasing a soul. Soul Summoning Lock is a unique weapon, a chain meteor hammer hidden in the sleeve, which can bind people and use force to climb walls and trees. His father Jixian, with these few martial arts skills, became known as the soul chaser in the martial arts world. Zhang Biao has been practicing hard for over a decade, and his martial arts have reached a higher level, but his qualifications are still shallow and he has not yet gained fame. The only peculiar one is this, 3-yang classic. This is the general outline of the Zhang family's martial arts, while the other several martial arts are soul-chasing and soul-breaking, full of killing energy, but the overall outline has a completely different style. Zhang Biao has been familiar with it since childhood, but apart from some techniques of exhaling and absorbing qi, it teaches people how to cultivate themselves and cultivate their character. Strangely, those methods of exhaling and absorbing qi are useless. After more than a decade of hard practice, there is no legendary sense of qi. According to my father, it is because his family's martial arts are too fierce that it is necessary to balance the overall plan and character. But Zhang Biao always felt that this was not the case. Without any hesitation, he activated his spiritual vision. At this moment, I suddenly realized the difficulty. There is indeed a secret. Zhang Biao was excited in his heart, trying to hold back his dizziness and concentrate on checking, but perhaps his energy had already been exhausted, and he only felt a surge of information. But before I could even examine it, I fainted in front of me. Outside the window, the dark sun had already set in the west. However, the people in the city once again experienced panic. A red moon is slowly rising. In the night sky, the earth is dyed red. The new book period has 2 updates a day, at 11 a.m. and 5 p.m., end of this chapter. Chapter 3. Refining Qi and Blood from the 3-yang classic. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Refining Qi and Blood from the 3-yang classic. The sky is dimly lit, and the cool breeze brings coolness. Above the city tower of Yong'an Gate, Hanlin Qingji Lu Yuan looked at the distant sunrise and touched his forehead with a cold sweat, almost crying. Black sun and red moon appear together, blood staining the mountains and rivers. This strange celestial phenomenon has never been recorded in history. Last night, from the inner courtyard of the palace to the 3 provinces and 6 ministries, no one could sleep. Several troops protecting the capital were mobilized overnight, with the imperial guards guarding the palace gates and the Jin Wuwei patrolling all night, fearing any chaos. I heard that the sage smashed his beloved jade cup in the palace, and even Li Guiran was scolded. Everyone knows how devastating it is for the arrogant emperor to see such a celestial phenomenon during the bustling and prosperous times in various places. Fortunately, today the sun still rises as usual, and bud shines in all directions, just like usual. Finally, it's over. Otherwise, people will really die. Lu Yuan straightened his clothes and arrived at the gatehouse, looking down at the soldiers and officials below. He slowly spread out the edict and said loudly, "The imperial pen pays homage. I heard that yesterday, there were 2 changes in the sun and moon, with the eclipse shining on the jade capital and the red blood staining the sky. Everyone was shocked and the people were worried. How can my heart be pitiful, and how can my emotions be pitiful? I originally intended to investigate the reasons behind it, and after a long period of calculation, I finally realized the sins of the old years. However, due to the changes in the celestial phenomena, I have been awakened to my heart, unable to sleep at night, and reflecting on the emperor's extreme. Therefore, I have issued a decree of self-punishment to serve as a self-warning and comfort the hearts of the people." That's right, the emperor issued a decree of self-blame. After experiencing an unprecedented strange celestial phenomenon, Emperor Zhao Mian of the Great Liang dynasty issued his first decree of self-punishment. The officials below breathed a sigh of relief. This decree of guilt represents that the matter has passed. The danger of the court is so great that no one dares to be careless. If there is no explanation for this matter, there will be rumors circulating among the people, officials will take the opportunity to criticize each other, and the emperor may also vent his anger on others when the head rolls around, there might be one of its own. The intention of this self-accusation edict is also very clear. Your Majesty, naturally there is no wrong. But if anyone dares to use this matter as an article, that's a big mistake. Along with the self-punishment edict, there is a series of rewards. Amnesty for the whole country, and each state's discretion to reduce taxes for 1 year subsequently, military control was also lifted. The gates of each district and city slowly opened, and although the people were panicked and uncertain, the days had to continue, and Yujing City gradually resumed its hustle and bustle. Accompanied by a severe headache, Zhang Biao opened his eyes. He fell to the ground, feeling the coldness behind him, staring blankly at the old wooden beams, his mind blank, and it took him a long time to recover. Damn it, you're being careless. Licking his dry lips, some distant memories from his past life flooded into his heart. This spiritual eye has side effects. One is to consume energy, and if used excessively, one may fall into a coma. The second is level suppression. In the game of the previous life, seeing an indescribable ancient god not only fails to receive information, but also directly leads to madness. But in the game, there are potions to restore energy, coupled with the ability to read and save files. Who would care about these? Be careful when using it in the future. Zhang Biao struggled to get up, picked up the kettle on the table, and took a big gulp before feeling a slight relief from his headache. Then, he looked at the 3-yang classic on the table. Although I suffered a crime last night, I also gained something. As I passed the secret script to this family, information suddenly surged in my mind. Sanyang Jing, Yellow Level 2nd Grade, 1. This is an ancient book that has been treated with special elixirs from alchemists and will not rot for thousands of years. 2. The ancient heritage has been submerged in the dust of history, and those fears, darkness, and blood have also been completely forgotten. 3. It yearns for blood. There is indeed a secret. Zhang Biao felt his mouth dry and his tongue dry, so he poured saliva hard again and carefully opened the 3-yang classic. Upon entering the eye, there are familiar scriptures. A person can always be quiet, and heaven and earth return. The human heart is calm, but it desires to lead it. It can often release its desires, but the heart remains calm, clarifying its heart and clearing its mind. Zhang Biao has already memorized this scripture proficiently. It's nothing more than a way to cultivate oneself and cultivate one's character, but the task of cultivating one's mind is easy to say, but difficult to do. He carefully rubbed the material of the secret script. The texture is tough, slightly yellowish, and can maintain non-decay for hundreds of years. I don't know what kind of medicine to use. This is a family heirloom of the Zhang family. Whether in war or wandering the world, it is carefully preserved, but its secrets are also kept unknown. Thinking of this, Zhang Biao didn't hesitate to bite his fingertips and carefully wipe along the pages of the book. He wouldn't be foolish enough to think that this book is a treasure that can recognize its owner with blood, mostly using special methods to hide information. Sure enough, there were tiny handwriting between the verses on the homepage. The 3-yang is the fire of the 3 treasures of essence, energy, and spirit. It is the true 3-yang classic. Zhang Biao suppressed his excitement and hid all the secret scripts. He walked out of the yard to his neighbor and knocked on the door, saying, "Uncle Zhou, are you at home?" "It's Captain Zhang, you." "Huh, it's okay. Let's rest today and buy a few chickens to satisfy my craving." "Okay, I'll catch it for you." Neighbor Zhou's father is a hardworking and honest person. His old wife passed away from tuberculosis, and his son broke his leg while serving in Corvée. The family had nothing to do, so they set up a livestock shed at home, raised pigs and fed chickens, causing a foul odor. Zhang Biao can easily say that he is too busy to stay at home on weekdays, but some unscrupulous people in the community use this as an excuse to come and cause trouble and extort money. Another splashing of feces and another stone blocking the door almost caused these two fathers and sons to hang themselves. After learning about it, Zhang Biao hung the few scoundrels from the tree, causing them to cry and howl. Therefore, the father and son were very grateful and often came to deliver some food. Chicken flies and dog jumps, feathers fly randomly. In the blink of an eye, Zhou's father walked over with two roosters, each with bright feathers, golden claws and red crowns, and bright eyes. Yo, not bad. Zhang Biao smiled and said, Dad Zhou, this appearance is rare. It's a pity to eat it. It's not a pity, it's not a pity. Sheriff, you gave too much. Take it, don't talk nonsense. After some excuses, Zhou's father accepted the copper coins, opened his mouth, and cautiously inquired, Constable Zhang, I heard that the emperor has issued a decree to offend himself. Has this matter passed? A decree of self-punishment. When did it happen? Zhang Biao hesitated slightly. Just this morning, the red moon last night was really scary. I dare not sleep all night, old man. Red moon. Sheriff, didn't you see it? I slept early last night. After some pleasantries, Zhang Biao learned about last night's incident and, feeling lost in thought, rushed home with a chicken in his hand. After he left, Zhou's father's son hesitated and said, Dad, last night our old chicken went crazy and pecked so many hens to death. Why didn't you tell Captain Zhang? Say what? Zhou's father widened his eyes and said, This matter is over. Don't talk nonsense, be careful not to bring trouble to your door. Returning home, Zhang Biao became increasingly uneasy. Black sun, blood moon, and his suddenly awakened spirit eye, even a fool can guess that something is wrong. A decree of self-blame may temporarily soothe people's hearts, but if any anomalies occur again, it may be a sign of chaos. Thinking of this, Zhang Biao shook his head, threw away the mixed emotions in his heart, killed the chicken, bled, and acted in one go. Blood smeared on it, gradually presenting the entire scripture. Zhang Biao read carefully, his eyes filled with shock. The three-yang classic is indeed a profound technique, and it is also rumored to be. No, it is a qi refining method that has never been heard of before. He has been in this world for more than a decade, and has never heard of anyone in the martial arts world who cultivates true qi. Even if his martial arts are practiced deep, at most, he is full of qi and blood. And these three-yang classics are not simple either. One is to cultivate internal qi, which can pass through hundreds of meridians. The second is the ability to refine the three-yang true fire. There are three fires on a person's body, one on each head and one on both shoulders, which are the fires of the three treasures of essence, energy, and spirit. When evil creatures invade, they must first extinguish these three fires. The three-yang classic utilizes true qi to strengthen the three treasures of essence, energy, and spirit, nurturing the true fire of the three-yang. It can not only protect the body but also break through evil spirits. Not only that, the scripture also mentions one point. Entering the spiritual realm, the true fire of the three-yang can guide the way back. Spiritual realm, what is that place again? Zhang Biao had some doubts, he had never heard of this term before. Subsequently, he was drawn to the last paragraph of the scripture. Senior brother 2, it is difficult to enter the spiritual realm, and all evil spirits have disappeared. There are also no zombies in the corpse breeding ground. The era of the end of the Dharma has arrived, wasting half of one's life. The spiritual energy of cultivation is gradually dissipating, the bones are withered and the flesh is gone, and one is lethargic all day long. Even if there are all kinds of unwillingness, there can only be confusion. Therefore, a secret scripture is left, hoping that one day heaven and earth will renew all things, and my Xianyang meridian can reproduce the heavenly sun. After reading it, Zhang Biao couldn't speak for a long time. Brother 2, the Xianyang lineage, the end of the legal era. He was unsure of the era of the person who left the letter, nor did he know how it fell into the hands of the Zhang family. The only certainty is that in that ancient era, there were cultivators and demons, ghosts, and zombies, but they all disappeared with the arrival of the end law. What is it now? Has the spiritual energy of heaven and earth revived? Zhang Biao looked out the window, his fists gradually clenching. Soul pierced through, and something could not be changed. He thought he would follow his father's old path. Make a name for oneself in the public gate, marry and have children. Old age brings leisure, and under the tree, one indulges in enjoying their grandchildren. But it seems that there are other options. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Many unfair things in the red dust. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Many unfair things in the red dust. The autumn wind is howling, and the trees are shedding insects. A few days have passed since the celestial vision of the black sun and blood moon, and the city of Yuanchen has also returned to its former prosperity. The matter of the mortal world is like this. When the people open their eyes, they are filled with firewood, rice, oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, and tea. Even if it's a big deal, they still have to live their lives. Of course, various rumors inevitably began to spread between tea houses, taverns, and brothels in the market. The emperor's lack of virtue, signs of great disasters. There are all kinds of things to say. But after the city patrol agent threw several unlucky ghosts into prison, no one dared to say more. South of the city, Tongjing Square. Although the 6 gates are under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Justice, they are not arranged in the northern city where the yamen are concentrated due to their frequent interactions with people in the martial arts world. That side is adjacent to the imperial city, and some people in the martial arts world are bold and fearless. If they disturb the relatives of the imperial family, it is always not beautiful. But after all, it is the yamen of the Ministry of Justice. The 300-year-old ancient building has been repeatedly repaired, appearing majestic and majestic. Yellow walls and red tiles, like the color of scorching sun exposure. Arch of wooden architecture on the eaves looks like flying. In the back hall, the chief constable of the 6 doors, Guoan, was sipping fragrant tea with a leisurely posture, but couldn't conceal his tired expression between his eyebrows and words. He is tall, with black hair and white temples, and square facial features. He is known for his impeccable behavior and has won the trust of Emperor Zhao Mian of the Liang dynasty. At this moment, 2 constables walked quickly into the door. One is a simple and honest-looking Constable Wang. On the other hand, one person has gray hair and one eye, and their facial features are Yin and Ji. Sir, we have already investigated thoroughly. The one-eyed constable bowed his hand in a deep voice and said, the gathering of Jianghu people in Yuzhou is all due to rumors. The once holy land of the martial arts world, Xuandu Temple, suddenly appeared, and my subordinates have sent scouts to go there. Xuandu Temple. Guan frowned slightly and said, 300 years ago, the Holy Emperor unified the 9 provinces and appointed Xuandu Temple as the great protector of the country. However, these old Taoist priests were ignorant and hid in the deep mountains. Now that they suddenly appear, it may not be easy. The one-eyed constable nodded and said, can I personally go there? No need, so as not to startle the snake. Guan waved his hand and said, currently, there is a shortage of manpower in the capital, and there is also a black sun and blood moon phenomenon. It is inevitable that someone will take advantage of it. Let's talk about it after this period of time. Huafeng, you have enough qualifications. Keep an eye on this matter. Once the storm subsides, I will apply to Lord Situ to make you up for the position of gold medal divine hunter. Thank you very much, sir. The one-eyed catcher suppressed his excitement and bowed his hand in gratitude. Guan nodded and looked at Constable Wang, asking, where is Zhang Biao? Did he go to the Li mansion to cause trouble? Constable Wang quickly smiled and said, I've been there to see. I've been practicing martial arts behind closed doors at home these past few days, and I'm very honest. This kid is quick-witted and skilled at handling cases, but occasionally likes to make mistakes. Guan shook his head and said in a deep voice, the young man's passion is understandable. For the sake of his father, we will not pursue him this time. At present, as you know, the situation in the capital city is irreversible with just a slight difference. Watch him more, if there's another time, never tolerate him. Constable Wang quickly apologized and said, don't worry, sir. That kid knows his mistake. To the west of the city, Huairan Fang. Yujing City is bustling with commerce and trade. Apart from the two cities of the east and west, which are places for commodity trading, many local markets also have their own characteristics, becoming gathering places for industries. The tomb ceremony of Jixian Fang, the wine of Xingye Fang, and the funeral coffins of Fengyi Fang are all well known in Beijing. Huairan Fang is the gathering place of medicinal halls. Whether it's authentic medicinal herbs from the north and south, whale fragrance from the sea, or tiger bones from the mountains. They can all be found in this place. Fangdong, Renxin Hall. 10 coins for ginseng, 10 coins for Atractylodes macrocephala, 10 coins for Poria cocos. After double-checking, the sitting doctor frowned slightly and said, Sir, I think your prescription looks a bit like Jixian Tang, but why did you add some medicine that can stretch tendons and penetrate bones? I have never seen it used like this before. Zhang Biao smiled and said, Don't worry, doctor. Just grab it and use the prescription for yourself. I won't trouble you. Well, okay. The doctor shook his head and handed the prescription to the waiter. He has never seen such a person before. He thinks he has some secret recipe and hides it more, but the technique of Qi Huang is to treat according to illness, and the same symptom may have different causes. No matter how good the prescription is, it is still a poison. But it's better to do less than to do more, and he's too lazy to say it. Zhang Biao is naturally less talkative. This is the prescription recorded in the Three Yang Classic. In fact, it is used to make tonic diet, stew tiger bone and chicken soup, and replenish vital energy in blood. The method of refining qi is not that simple. Even if he speculates that spiritual energy will be revived in this world, it is not something that the mortal body can bear. Otherwise, it will make you gasp for breath. Isn't it possible for everyone to practice? The method of refining qi first requires one's own qi and blood to be abundant. Internally refining the 5 internal organs, eating rare foods externally, strengthening the vital energy, passing through the 3 jiao, using the 6 meridians as the main stream, and the gastrointestinal tract as the sea, can gradually stimulate innate energy in the future. Direct cultivation may lead to explosive death. After grabbing the medicine, Zhang Biao hurried home. A mysterious world was already looming, with infinite attraction, and everything else was forgotten by him. Returning to Anjin Fang's home, immediately start cooking and stewing soup. Tiger bones are the main ingredient, and chicken soup is mixed together. After stewing for 3 hours, the medicinal herbs are put down and simmered over low heat. This fuss arrived in the afternoon. The prepared soup is blood red in color, with a faint fishy smell and a sticky texture resembling jelly. Zhang Biao had already cooked for the second time, familiar with the way, swallowed it in one gulp, and then stood firm in the courtyard. The medicinal power is not small, and it must be refined through practice. He first stood at the Hunyuan pile for half an hour, palms pressed against his abdomen, and slowly rotated clockwise as he exhaled. In no time, there was a gurgling sound in my stomach, as if I had put on a little toad, and my skin gradually turned red. Sweat was steaming, and heat was rising from my head. Zhang Biao felt like he was in a furnace, his eyes red, and even the breath in his nose carried a burning pain. He stared and gestured, then practiced the family martial arts, soul-chasing hand. Fist is yang, twist the body and waist like a hammer, strike palm is yin, hook hands on both sides as if holding a soul, stepping on the meridian chain of steps, sometimes standing up and chopping down, like a diamond subduing demons, sometimes galloping with empty steps, like a spirit rabbit for a moment, the dust was flying in the courtyard, and only a shadow could be seen. The fists were beating and the sound was making. After a while, Zhang Biao stopped his figure, his temples were swollen, his eyes were shining brightly, and a few breaths slowly converged. He looked at his hands and a smile appeared on his face. During this period, although the 3-yang classic has not yet cultivated the sense of qi, its vigorous qi and blood have achieved results. If you were to engage in a fight with someone at this moment, I'm afraid even hundreds of moves would not be effective. Not only that, but also the essence and spirit are more vigorous. He has already experimented these days. If you use your spiritual eye to view ordinary items more than 5 or 6 times before, you will feel mentally exhausted. If it's yellow grade 1, it's 2 times. It's not that it can't continue, but once overused, it can lead to drowsiness, unclear mind, and inability to cope with danger. After practicing the 3-yang classic, the number of uses increased in just a few days, and it was not a problem to explore ordinary objects 7 or 8 times. Further exploration of yellow grade 2nd grade items will never result in fainting like last time. Thinking of this, Zhang Biao came to the stove again, his spiritual eyes turning and taking a look at the remaining medicinal soup. Ba Jin Qi Shui Tang, Fan, 1. Tonic diet during the gas refining period is a basic prescription for tonifying qi and blood. 2. Low material and insufficient effectiveness. 3. Alchemists traverse the barren mountains and rivers, taste grass and poison, and pursue the rumored elixir of immortality, but how many can succeed? After reading it, Zhang Biao felt a bit regretful. This 8 treasures qi and blood soup is the lowest grade medicinal soup in the 3-yang classic, originally intended to use some aged spiritual medicines. The higher the quality of tiger bones and chicken soup, the better. Replacing it with ordinary medicinal herbs is simply not acceptable. But even so, the consumption is quite astonishing. It takes 10 taels of silver to make pharmaceutical soup at once. If this continues, I'm afraid I'll become a poor person in a few months. No wonder it is said that wealth follows the law. Practicing is not something that ordinary people can afford to play with. It seems that we still need to find a way to make money while pondering. Zhang Biao suddenly had a slight movement in his eyes and looked out of the courtyard. He is currently in excellent condition, with clear ears and eyes. Even if the gate was tightly closed, footsteps could be heard outside. Scratching and hesitating. It's getting late soon, who's bothering you? Zhang Biao furrowed his brows slightly and strode forward, opening the courtyard door. After seeing the newcomer, his face immediately froze. The newcomer was an old woman, with a patched blue robe, a hunched figure, silver hair all over her head, and wrinkles all over her face. She carried her face pocket on her back and quickly put it down when she saw Zhang Biao. Opening the bag, it was filled with black and long wild rice. The old woman's face was pale and her voice was a bit awkward. Zhang. Captain Zhang, the wild rice is ripe. I went to pick some and bring it to you, she said. Zhang Biao sighed and said, Grandma Wu, come in quickly. No, no. The old woman trembled and waved her hand, then looked at Zhang Biao with both fear and hope in her eyes. Captain Zhang, when will the murderer be executed? This is the reason why he was ordered to rest. This person's name is Wu Apo, a villager's family outside Yujing City. A month ago, his wife and son went to the city to sell firewood, but they didn't return for a few days. When they found him, he was already a broken body. The case is not difficult at all, and there are many knowledgeable individuals. The murderer was a villain from a neighborhood in the capital, named Xiao San. He needs to use half a foot of hemp cloth to exchange for a cart of firewood. Wu Laohan and his son were naturally unwilling. In the dispute, they were killed by the drunken Xiao San on the street and wiped their necks with a knife. Originally, it was just a small matter. Killing someone pays off, it was just a villain. If you catch Chiu Ho and ask for his execution, that's it. The trouble is, Xiao San is the nephew of the steward of the Li mansion. The Li family, relying on the prestige of Li Guiren, rampaged and caused trouble in the capital. Some officials couldn't stand it and rebuked him in court, but the emperor pretended to be deaf and mute. Not only did he not overthrow the Li family, but Yan officials were also falsely accused and imprisoned. The Jingzhou mansion didn't want to handle this case, and the Dali temple decoration couldn't be seen. They pushed left and right until they reached 6 doors. Zhang Biao came to ask for someone, but to his surprise, the gatekeeper glanced at him with a sideways glance and ignored him. He even mocked him multiple times, almost causing a conflict at the time. He was also furious and used some martial arts tactics to lure Xiao San out and arrest him on the spot at the entrance of the Li mansion. Now, I have offended the powerful. He is currently on vacation, which is actually a safe haven. Upon hearing Wu Anti's inquiry, Zhang Biao pondered for a moment and said, the evidence in this case is conclusive, and the Ministry of Justice will verify it. They will be interrogated and executed in the autumn. Oh, that's good, that's good. Grandma Wu's cloudy eyes were filled with hope, and she trembled as she said, thanks to Constable Zhang, I was able to seek justice. Dragging this body is just waiting for that villain's head to fall. If there is an afterlife, I will repay you with great kindness as a cow and a horse. Her voice trembled, and after thanking her again, she turned around and left. Grandma Wu, please take the things back. Zhang Biao quickly spoke up. But the old woman seemed to have lost some consciousness, her eyes bewildered, trembling as she walked, murmuring. It's all fate, it's all fate. Looking at that figure, Zhang Biao sighed slightly in his heart. He knew that Grandma Wu had already developed a desire for life and death. Looking at the bag, a surge of information surged up. Wild rice, Fan, 1. Wild grass grows on the riverbank, and the on-core is edible. After ripening, wild rice will fall into the water, and when it comes into contact with water, it will explode, making it difficult to pick. 2. The emperor regarded it as a treasure, and the people carefully picked and offered it to the guests, calling it carved rice. There is a poem that says, kneel in carved rice, and the moonlight shines on the vegetarian plate. 3. Desperate old woman, using it as the last gift of life, end of this chapter. Chapter 5. Guitou Willow in the Western Market. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Guitou Willow in the Western Market. The next day, in the Western Market of Beijing. Shishir is the trading center for bulk commodities in the capital city, with a layout of 4 horizontal and 3 vertical directions, divided into nearly 100 streets of different sizes. More than 5,000 stores are concentrated here, and even nearby markets have built warehouses. This is the center of the 300-year business network of the Daliang period. As for Dongshi, as it is surrounded by wealthy and influential people, most of them are luxury shops, and those with a small fortune have to peel off their skin when entering. Business is flourishing, and nature brings together the 3 streams of education. The wide Qinglong Canal runs across the Western Market. Along both banks of the river, there are vendors selling various snacks, dim sum, and many people in the Jianhu set up stalls to show their skills. Dancing swords and sticks, selling powerful pills, searching for ropes and playing illusions, and some tricks in the martial arts world can be seen almost everywhere here. As a result, Shishir has also become a leisure place for the people of the capital to take care of the elderly and children, and play. Okay. Okay. The crowd by the river surrounded, cheering incessantly. Unlike the left and right stalls, many children here ride on their father's shoulders, eat tomatoes on sticks, and cheer with excitement. But on the central clearing, a person was playing with a monkey. The monkey performer is dressed in black and has gray hair. He has a hunched and short stature, with one eye large and one eye small, indicating a natural disability. But the monkey he played with was not simple, it was a rare big horse monkey. Macaques are inherently ferocious, with brightly colored faces resembling ghosts and monsters. They can easily drive away tigers and devour wolves in groups. In some places, they are also classified as mountain mandrills, and various strange stories are spread. Simply put, it's no different from a beast. But this macaque is extremely human, wearing a ridiculous woman's robe and arguing with the monkey charmer playing the role of husband and wife. Sometimes twisted and pinched, sometimes pinched and stomped, very similar to an angry woman, making people around burst into laughter. Seeing this situation, the monkey teaser became more and more enthusiastic. I saw him chuckle and suddenly throw the gong high in his hand, hanging it on a 5 zhang tall willow tree next to him. The people around were immediately shocked. There is a saying that this willow tree is called Ghost Head Willow. After autumn, the death row inmates in the capital were beheaded and placed under this tree to demonstrate the court's laws and warn the people. A few days ago, I just killed someone, and the blood smell around the tree has not dissipated yet. Coupled with the old dirty blood, it looks very unlucky. Although the people enjoy watching the excitement, they also take detours on weekdays. Perhaps it is year-round nourishing of qi and blood. Even as the mid-autumn festival approaches, the ghost head willow still has lush green shade and no fallen leaves can be seen. Before everyone could react, the big monkey had already jumped up the willow tree 3 times. After finding the gong, it turned its head and gritted its teeth. In the dense leaves, the ghost face is like blood, very permeable. Wow! A child was frightened and started crying. The monkey teaser still smiled when he saw the situation. Humble in attitude, but cold in the eyes. This is called town mayor. When wandering in the martial arts world and performing, there are some people who don't pay for their free prostitution. By doing this, they can let everyone know that he is not only good at pretending to be ugly. Sure enough, after the big horse monkey jumped down with a gong, the onlookers were inexplicably anxious, and even if they were stingy, they would have to throw down a few copper coins. But there are always unexpected things. I saw a man standing in the crowd, with a fair face, clasping his hands and a playful smile on his face. The big horse monkey came over with a gong, and the young man suddenly threw the chain, grabbed the monkey's head, and dragged it back quickly. How brave! The monkey teaser was furious, but as he approached to take action, he froze and stopped. I saw a man walking out of the crowd, tall and towering like an iron tower, with a square face and indifferent eyes. He slowly drew a horizontal sword from his waist. Chen Hoer, you raped, killed, and abducted more than 10 women in Suzhou, and even dared to come to the capital. You are completely ignorant. The eagle dog of 6 doors. The monkey teaser's face changed slightly, and he didn't care about his own monkey. He turned around and wanted to escape. But the square-faced man's knife is faster. Accompanied by the white light of Pai Lian, it has already chopped towards the monkey teaser's head. Hearing the evil wind coming behind him, the monkey charmer rolled around one by one to avoid it, and then spun up to pose. Like a monkey gazing at the moon, grinning its teeth. It shouldn't be like this. I also have a pair of leather gloves on my hand, and the iron hooks on my fingertips are dark, emitting a foul smell. Ghost monkey fist. The catcher with a square face had a slightly fixed gaze, but he didn't stop his hand. He took a step forward in a zigzag motion, and the horizontal knife stabbed straight out. There are many types of monkey fist, but most of them are close-range short combat. His weapons are superior, so he naturally needs to distance himself. But Chen Hoer has done evil deeds and dares to come and hang out in the capital. Of course, he is not mediocre. With a short body, he avoids the light of the sword, and his sharp claws are as fast as light and shadow, drilling into the arms of the constable. Monkey Fist has the hands of climbing branches to pick peaches and hiding flowers under leaves. Ghost Monkey Fist maximizes the combination of reality and virtuality, with its sinister and vicious techniques. Coupled with the unique poison of finger hooks, it can be deadly with just one touch. The constable with a square face was not panicked either. He wielded a 6-in-1 sword dance in a dignified manner, advancing and retreating in an orderly manner, both protecting the vital points and preventing the opponent from escaping. At the same time, the patrol of Wuhou in Shishir also surrounded them. They are naturally not as skilled as the Six Gates Constable, but they cooperate well with each other and can also help a lot. Someone was holding a chain to tie the big monkey, allowing the young catcher with a white face to free up his hands. Someone worked together to open the iron rope and knife net. This thing is extremely vicious and is best at dealing with people in the martial arts world. No matter how agile your body method is, once you cover it up, it will break your flesh and tendons. The monkey teaser quickly retreated when he saw something wrong. The constable with a square face was about to bully him, but he saw Chen Hoer throwing several black pills as big as fists around his waist. His pupils contracted and he quickly retreated. Bang! 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 The black pill exploded as soon as it landed, and in an instant, colorful thick smoke rose up. The smoke not only obscured the view, but also emitted a strange and foul odor. Not to mention the nearby Marquis of Wu, even the people hiding in the distance watching the commotion smelled it and felt a sense of tightness in their chest, constantly vomiting. For a moment, everyone squatted on the ground and retched. The constable with a square face was also clever, covering his mouth and nose, holding his breath, and with a single slash of his long sword, he rushed into the smoke to chase after him. However, it was still one step slower. The monkey teaser has taken 3 steps at a time, stepping on the steamed cake stall on the roadside and rising into the air, wanting to jump onto the roof of the shop. The constable with a square face became anxious when he saw it. Most shops in the West Market are divided into 2 floors. The lower level sells goods, the upper level hoards goods, and many even put up tarpaulins on the roof, with staggered heights and connected paving, making the terrain extremely complex. If it is allowed to climb onto the roof, it will definitely lose its trace. Wow! At this moment, a chain roared out. The chain is silver in color and is made of unknown metal. There is also a 3-edged meteor spearhead in front of it, which is exceptionally agile in the air and wraps around the monkey charmer's right leg like a venomous snake. Soul summoning rope. Chen Hoer's eyes were panicked, but he only had time to let out a scream before being forcefully pulled down from the air. Bang! Dust and smoke were flying, causing him to lose all his meat and vegetables. This guy's body is tough enough, he's about to get up as soon as he grits his teeth. But at the same time, the chain tightened again, pulling him up into the air and crashing heavily against the wall with a bang. Puff! Chen Hoer spewed out a mouthful of blood and finally stopped moving. At this moment, another young constable with a white face had also arrived. Seeing this, his eyes lit up and he said, "Brother Biao, I haven't seen you for a few days. Your skills have improved again." A person slowly walked out. It was Zhang Biao who had changed into casual clothes. Zhang Biao's wrist trembled, and the soul-catching chain shrank back into his sleeve like a snake. Then he shook his head and said, "Take the person away first, and then come find me." "Yes, Zhang Tu." The 2 constables quickly arched their hands in a respectful manner. There are many personnel in the 6 gates, roughly divided into 3 levels. Chief Constable, Constable, and Constable. Among them, the constables were divided into 3 orders: gold, silver, and copper. The chief constable is Guoren, who is in charge of the overall situation. His uncle Wang, the constable, is a silver medal constable and can be considered a mid-level constable. His father Zhang Xian is a gold medal catcher, and at this level, he is often referred to as a divine catcher, which is why he is known as a soul-catching divine catcher. As for Zhang Biao, due to his shallow qualifications, he is still a bronze medal constable with only 3 constables under his command. The name of the constable with a square face is Tai Shoming. He was originally an escort, but later lost his dart and was expelled from the escort agency. He decided to enter the 6 gates. The young man is called Wang Xian, also from a noble family. He is clever and has been playing behind him since childhood. When the two of them left, Zhang Biao looked at Guitou again, with a slight frown and a serious expression on his face. He is still on vacation and came to look for two subordinates, naturally to inquire about the Xiao Sanyi case. If a time is set, I will ask someone to notify Grandma Wu, so as not to let the old man run away in vain repeatedly. But when I arrived at Shishir, I was attracted by this ghost-headed Willow. Perhaps it is because the essence and spirit are becoming more and more abundant. I didn't feel it before, but now when I see this ghost Willow, I feel uncomfortable all over. In broad daylight, I felt a chill in my heart. Just now, I was intimidated by the Guitou Zhen and didn't take action immediately. Is it possible that this thing has also produced strangeness? Thinking of this, he activated his spiritual vision. Sure enough, there was a sharp pain in the eyebrows, making it exceptionally difficult. In a daze, Zhang Biao only felt the dark wind around him, the sky darkening, and the bustling West Market seemed to be the only one left. And the ghost-headed Willow became even more tall and gloomy. Not good. Zhang Biao was taken aback and quickly stopped his spiritual gaze. This situation has never been encountered before, even when looking at the yellow level 2nd grade Sanyang Jing, there is no such phenomenon. However, it is already late. A cold and gloomy aura enveloped Zhang Biao, making him feel stiff all over. His head seemed frozen in ice, and he was completely numb. Puff. 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 At this moment, 3 small flames slowly rose above his head and shoulders. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Treasure Hunting Jixian Fang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Treasure Hunting Jixian Fang. The flame is weak, like a candle in the wind. But even so, there is still a warm current flowing into the chest and mind, leading to the limbs. Like ice melting, Zhang Biao's consciousness gradually became clear. Meanwhile, the surrounding scenery also returned to normal. At noon, the autumn breeze is slightly cool, and the people and vendors are clamoring and making constant noises, as if it was just a dream. But Zhang Biao knew that it was by no means a dream. Although he is recovering at this moment, his whole body is weak, and his eyes are black, as if he has been seriously ill. You should know that he has been practicing the 3 Yang classic these days, taking the 8 treasures qi and blood soup to nourish the essence of dragons and tigers. But in the blink of an eye, it became like this. At the same time, a surge of information surged in the mind. Yujing City Ghost Head Willow, Yellow Level 2nd Grade, 1. The place of execution in Yujing City has accumulated blood and resentment for 300 years. It has been struck 9 times by lightning without being extinguished, and has become intertwined with the spiritual realm. 2. In that dark and reality-mixed spiritual realm, the remaining souls are trapped in the desolate darkness, bound in the past, unable to let go or leave. 3. Be careful of the shadows in the darkness. 4. Don't easily step into. There is indeed something strange. It also intertwined with the spiritual realm. Spirit realm. This is the second time Zhang Biao has seen this word. The first time I heard it was at the end of the volume of the 3 Yang Classic, where the nameless cultivator left a posthumous note. It is difficult to enter the spiritual realm, all fierce ghosts have disappeared, and there are no zombies in the place where the corpse is raised. According to intelligence, there is a hidden ghost in the spiritual realm. Moreover, the 3 Yang Classic can cultivate the true fire of the 3 Yang. As mentioned in the scripture, these 3 Yang true flames can protect the body and also break through evil spirits. Entering the spiritual realm can also guide the way back. Just now, I should have been forcibly triggered to emit the true fire of the 3 Yang, but as I have not yet successfully cultivated it, it quickly extinguishes like a rootless fire. Not only that, but it also consumed a large amount of essence and spirit. It seems that this spiritual realm is far beyond what I can access now. Ghost-headed Willow has turned into this thing. The revival of spiritual energy had just begun when such a strange thing appeared, and I don't know what would happen in the future. Thinking of this, Zhang Biao looked at Guitou with a fierce light in his eyes. Burning this thing will prevent future troubles. But the thoughts were dispelled together. Not to mention burning this item, it will be seen as a provocation to the court. Will it be useful if burned? Will it trigger autophagy? All are unknowns. He knows very little about the mysterious world of cultivation, so it's better to be cautious thinking of this. Zhang Biao gave Guitou a deep glance and without hesitation turned around and left. The lecherous thief Chen Hoer was taken away, but those who watched the excitement were still there. Just because the big monkey was still bound by chains, struggling on the ground, with a fierce expression, revealing a pair of fangs and roaring. The Marquis Wu in the Western market felt a headache watching. They're all scattered, what's there to see? Sir, what should this guy do? Well, this beast is fierce. Kill it to death, so as not to escape and harm the people. Great. The water and fire stick roared down, the monkey head plasma splattered, and the furry body kept twitching, gradually becoming motionless. No one noticed that the great horse monkey died without closing its eyes. In the murky eyes, there was a reflection of the ghost-headed Willow shadow. The ferocious intent persists. Zhang Tu, you are so generous today. In Deshan Fang and Qingfeng building, Wang Xian was eating profusely. Zhang Biao suffered a great loss of qi and blood, and even more so, he muttered, eat your food, don't talk nonsense. Even the seemingly rigid Tai Shoming is making a move from left to right. On the table, a pot of roasted deer meat has mostly disappeared. Within Yujing City, there are many delicious foods. To establish a foothold in the capital, one cannot do without two skills, so a group of culinary experts from all over the world have gathered. Louis Dao's fish chops, Dashan Temple's vegetarian restaurant, Western Region Ada's father's roast sheep, Lady Li's dim sum, but when it comes to roasted deer, it still belongs to Qingfeng Tower. The superior northern Xinjiang snow deer meat should be marinated with 18 kinds of spices, wrapped with snow pear slices, placed in a well for half a day, and then roasted with fruit trees at low temperature. The process is tedious and time-consuming. Zhang Biao didn't want to eat it at first, but he was hungry, and he cooked tonic diet these days, and the silver flowed out, which also meant that the jar was broken. In no time, only bones remained on the table. Wang Xian usually doesn't have a proper appearance, and at this moment, he is drinking fruit wine and jokingly saying, Brother Biao, do you have a way to get rich? Take your younger brother with you. Make a fortune. Zhang Biao suddenly felt heartbroken again, took a strong sip of wine, and asked in a deep voice, pay attention to Xiao San's case. If you have any news, let me know. Upon hearing this, Wang Xian became very anxious and said, Brother Biao, please don't get involved in this matter anymore. Tai Shoming also said with a stern expression, I know your highness has been angry, but it's best not to interfere in this matter. The Li mansion is currently in high demand, and I heard that the head of the Li family has just been appointed as a servant. Several princes have presented congratulatory gifts. He spoke vaguely, but Zhang Biao knew the meaning behind it. Today's sages are getting older, but the tiger's power is still there, unwilling to delegate power, and even sitting firmly in the Beichen Hall, watching several princes compete for the throne. The only one I love is Li Guiren. Although the princes may not put down their dignity to please, the face and etiquette they deserve are becoming more and more important. At this moment, provoking the Li family was like touching the butt of a tiger. Looking at the anxious appearance of the two, Zhang Biao felt a slight warmth in his heart and smiled, Don't worry, I'm just helping people gather information. As a little constable, I wouldn't be seen by anyone. Once the wind passes, I'll be fine. Seeing that the two were still worried, he smiled and said, Don't worry, I won't force it. Okay, let's keep an eye out. The two looked at each other and could only agree. For a moment, the atmosphere was somewhat dull. Wang Xinchen was lively and changed the topic with a smile, saying, Brother Biao, in these days when you're not here, something big has happened in the martial arts world. The martial arts Holy Land Xuandu Temple has appeared. After hearing this, Zhang Biao became interested and said, "Tell me more." This Xuandu Temple is known as the Holy Land of the martial arts world. Just like in previous life stories, there are often people who worship the Holy Land, learn amazing martial arts skills, and become outstanding talents in the martial arts world sometimes, like Zihang Jingjai. He would send successors to assist the emperor in unifying the 9 provinces during turbulent times. In short, it is full of legendary colors. Zhang Biao casually inquired, but curiosity arose in his heart. Calculating the time, Xuandu Temple happened to appear after the Black Sun Blood Moon Mirage. Perhaps there is a connection between them, leaving Qingfeng Tower, separated from 2 subordinates. Zhang Biao pondered for a moment before heading towards Jixian Fang. Jixian Square is located in the east of Yujing City and is famous for its tomb ceremony. The so-called Fendian refers to the 3 tombs and 5 classics in the past life. In this era, it refers to the 2 legendary ancient historical books, Emperor's Tomb and Emperor's Classic, which have long been lost and are only occasionally mentioned in some historical books. Regardless of the type, it refers to ancient books. Therefore, as soon as you enter Jixian Fang, you can see that there are bookstores of all sizes, as well as shops selling the 4 treasures of the study, on both sides of the square. Most of the people traveling on the streets are scholars. Even if wealthy merchants from the city come here, they must change into Confucian robes to avoid being looked down upon. In addition, on both sides of the street, there are stalls of all sizes selling antique calligraphy and paintings, which are difficult to distinguish between real and fake. Looking at the scene before him, Zhang Biao's eyes showed a hint of hope. After experiencing the incident with Grandma Wu, he had no interest in the officialdom, and now his mind was full of only the mysterious world of cultivation. And now the biggest trouble is silver. The qi refining method in the 3-yang classic consumes too much and requires precious medicinal herbs to be combined. Before the qi sense can be developed, one's wealth will shrink significantly. If there is no source of money, it may be difficult to sustain. I have been pondering hard these days and have an idea. Using my spiritual vision to pick up leaks, I don't know if it's possible in the Jixian Fang. There is a large flow of people, but it does not appear noisy. Zhang Biao walked with his hands behind his back, looking left and right. He has no intention of entering the shops on both sides of the tomb. There were many printing workshops in the Daliang dynasty, most of which were newly printed books, and rare ancient books were mostly collected in wealthy families. It is unrealistic to expect to find a way to practice. The antique stalls around him are his target. To be honest, Zhang Biao's previous life was mediocre in learning, and in this life he is also a warrior. He knows nothing about antique identification and research. Here, there is a mix of good and bad, and most of them are fake goods. But Zhang Biao has another clever trick. He can't distinguish antiques, but he works at the 6 gates with a pair of sharp moves. Tufu Zi and Tomb Mouse can be distinguished at a glance. After taking a few steps, I locked onto a target. That was an old man dressed in a Confucian robe, with gray hair and a dejected face. He squatted in front of the stall, his eyes bewildered. Capital residence is not easy. Some of them have wealthy ancestors but are now in dire straits. In order to survive, they can only sell their ancestral business. Unfortunately, this guy is pretending. Although his eyes seemed dull, he remained silent and secretly scrutinized the passers-by, calculating which one was the fat sheep. And those hands, much rougher than the old farmer, with 4 fingers flat and wide joints, like steel chisels. This is the finger technique practiced by Tomb Mouse. Even if trapped underground, they can use their finger strength to forcefully pull open the tomb bricks and dig holes to leave. Zhang Biao chuckled inwardly and walked slowly to the stall. The old man stiffened when he saw him, lowered his head and closed his eyes, pretending not to see him. He can smell the smell of thieves, and even thieves can tell his identity. Zhang Biao didn't care and carefully examined the goods. What this old man sells are all ancient study treasures, mixed with some copper plates and tin utensils. Although they are wiped clean, soil stains can still be seen in the crevices. Zhang Biao first looked at a bronze mirror. The eye of spiritual vision operates and immediately sends information. Bat-patterned bronze mirror, Fan, 1. 50 years ago, mirrors made of bronze were carved with bat patterns, symbolizing auspiciousness and extending the blessings of future generations. 2. Ordinary objects undergo treatment after rusting. 3. This mirror conveys a father's blessings for his daughter who has been married far away, and finally sleeps with the owner. He is indeed a soil mouse. Zhang Biao glanced lightly and didn't ask much. Tomb robbing has always been a profession, and compared to the bandits he usually deals with, it is not worth mentioning and he is too lazy to pay attention to. Thinking of this, he looked at several more objects. They are all items from ordinary people's homes, mostly not over 100 years old, and their styles are also very ordinary, probably not worth money. Of course, the eye of spiritual vision was not used. With his current abilities, he cannot use this method too much. In addition, seeing the ghost head Willow today has damaged his mental state. At most, he can use it again, otherwise he won't be able to get up tomorrow. Zhang Biao was not disappointed either, and turned around to prepare to leave. His method is purely a stroke of luck. In his spare time, he looks at it a few times a day and always gains something. The old man in the Confucian robe also breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. At this moment, a skinny boy hurriedly ran over, his eyes flustered, and whispered a word to the old man. Although his voice was weak, Zhang Biao could hear clearly. "Grandpa, the little leprosy has fallen into evil." End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Mirror of the Thief's Nest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Mirror of the Thief's Nest. Zhongxie. Zhang Biao's heart moved and his footsteps slowed down. If left untreated, he would only scoff at the notion of evil in the middle, believing it to be a foolish talk among the people. But now, it is highly valued. Earth Temple, Ghost Head Willow, 3 Yang Classic. A revival of spiritual energy in this world is beyond doubt. Could it be that something evil has emerged again? To avoid startling the snake, Zhang Biao pretended not to hear and squatted in front of another stall to check. Sure enough, the old man cautiously glanced at his back and saw him asking the price from the opposite vendor. He quickly closed the stall and hurriedly left with the skinny young man. The elderly and young left Jixian Fang, walked through the streets and alleys, and quickly headed towards the south of the city. Zhang Biao naturally followed secretly. Unconsciously, they arrived at Yongding Fang. Zhang Biao frowned slightly and stopped walking. The north and south of Yujing City are poor. If Anjin Fang, where he is located, is a civilian area, then this is a refugee shantytown. This Yongding Square is close to the city wall and is named after the entrance to the Yongding Canal. In the early days of the founding of the Daliang dynasty, although 108 neighborhoods were built in Yujing City, the population was sparse at that time, and it was still a barren forest. There were even stories of tigers and wolves occupying and cannibalizing people, which can be imagined that it was remote. Nowadays, there is a gathering of refugees and beggars, with bumpy dirt roads, sewage flowing horizontally, and pedestrians dressed in tattered clothes and disheveled faces. Although Zhang Biao changed into plain clothes, his figure stood tall, clean and tidy, and suddenly became somewhat prominent. Sure enough, there was already a sinister gaze in the dark. Zhang Biao gave a faint glance and turned into the dark alley. Several beggars squatting on the street corner quickly got up, exchanged glances, and followed in with sharp blades. The dark alley filled with miscellaneous trees is now empty. On the towering wall of the square, Zhang Biao trembled lightly, put away his soul-teasing rope, lowered his body, and swiftly moved forward like a spirit cat in the dilapidated courtyard. Garbage is piled up haphazardly in the corner. The tiled house was covered in wormwood, and half of the earth wall collapsed, even the beams cracked and covered in spider webs. No matter how you look at it, it's all a deserted mansion. But in the yard, there were a dozen or so children gathered, big and small, each dressed in tattered clothes and disheveled faces. They looked at the withered trees in the courtyard with frightened eyes. On the trunk of the tree, a young man covered in scabs was tied with hemp rope, unable to move his hands and feet, with a twisted face and a silly smile. "Grandpa is back." As the old man entered the door, the teenagers immediately gathered around. The old man didn't talk nonsense and looked at the bound young man with a gloomy expression, saying, "Go ahead, what's going on?" A calm-looking young man spoke up and said, "Grandpa, don't blame me. The little leprosy didn't mean to. He got up this morning and felt a bit wrong. He kept saying someone called him in the warehouse, but then he crawled in and touched a bright object, and it turned out like this." The old man became furious upon hearing these words. "Pop!" He slapped the young man who answered fiercely and flew him out. He scanned his eyes fiercely and said coldly, "How many times have you said that only I can enter the warehouse? White-eyed wolves, if it weren't for the old man taking them in, you would have starved to death long ago. You haven't learned your skills yet, so you're thinking of rebelling." The teenagers were trembling and dared not speak, bowing their heads. In the dark alley outside the courtyard, Zhang Biao stood against the wall, following a broken hole to see the situation inside clearly. This is a nest of earth mice. There are many unexpected dangers involved in tomb raiding. Some old thieves are getting older and usually gather beggars to give them a bite of food and pass on some basic skills. When working, there are people watching the wind, people going down to the grave, and people responsible for drilling holes, with clear division of labor. These young people are called disciples, but in reality, they are all tools of old thieves. When encountering mechanisms in the tomb, their lives depend entirely on their lives. Only those who are clever will gradually learn their craft, either run away and work alone, or endure the old thief to death and become a leader. Generations have grown up like this. Of course, these teenagers are not simple either. From a young age, I have witnessed the warmth and coldness of the world, and have been subjected to countless harsh eyes. Everyone has a heart as hard as iron, cunning and fierce. If the old thief cannot control it, he will immediately face backlash. As expected, the old mouse didn't pay any attention to the leprous boy who seemed to be smirking and smirking. Instead, he asked coldly, which artifact did he touch? The young man who had just been beaten struggled to get up, his face swollen purple-blue, but he dared not show any resentment. Instead, he respectfully lowered his head and said, "Grandpa, that's the bronze mirror we found in the snake temple. You said that thing was unlucky and probably not worth any money, so you kept throwing it in the corner of the warehouse wall. What kind of thing is it?" The old thief looked at an earthen house, his eyes uncertain, and then sneered, "I have been eating a meal for the dead for my whole life. No strange thing is just a mechanism magic poison, scaring people. This little leprosy doesn't clean his hands and feet on weekdays. It's likely that the leprosy will discharge pus into his brain, making him foolish." As he spoke, he looked at the beaten boy and threw out a string of keys. "Oda, go and take out that bronze mirror," he said. What, be quick." The boy who was beaten was full of bitterness on his face, but he dared not disobey. He picked up the key and trembled as he walked into the room. This kid is also a bit shrewd. He pulled off his tattered clothes, grabbed the bronze mirror with a stick, wrapped it up, and ran out, throwing it on the ground. Gollum the copper mirror dripped and rolled down, and everyone quickly retreated. Zhang Biao also inspected along the wall crack. That is a copper mirror the size of a palm, facing downwards, and one can only see the complex patterns on the back, which includes both talismans and ghost faces. No matter how you look at it, it's not something that normal people use. "Grandpa." The boy holding the mirror's eyes were filled with fear. This mirror is as cold as ice." "Oh. As soon as these words were spoken, the old thief's face twitched slightly. His eyes were uncertain, and after hesitating for a while, he suddenly spoke up, "In our profession, be careful not to sail for thousands of years. Since there is something strange, let's throw it away quickly." As he spoke, his eyes suddenly turned and he said, "We have no luck enjoying this thing. Lu Laogui must have liked it very much. Oda, throw the mirror at his doorstep, don't let anyone see it." The beaten boy's face turned bitter, and he picked up a bronze mirror in his ragged pocket and ran out of the dilapidated courtyard, scattering his feet. He turned left and right all the way, and arrived at another desolate old alley. Without looking up, he threw down his bronze mirror and turned around to leave. Accompanied by the sound of clothes and wind, Zhang Biao fell off the wall, grabbed a torn mat, wrapped a bronze mirror, and quickly left clattering. As soon as he returned home, Zhang Biao and the young man made almost the same move and threw the mirror onto the ground. Without him, this mirror has something strange. Even through the straw mat, there seems to be a chill spreading along the arm, making people feel chilly. Zhang Biao touched his palm, his face solemn. The temperature in the palm has not changed, just like checking the ghost head Willow before. This coolness directly affects the mind. Is it related to the spiritual realm again? After hesitating for a moment, he couldn't resist his curiosity and started using the eye of spiritual vision. Sure enough, the operation is somewhat sluggish. But to Zhang Biao's surprise, although his forehead was cold, there was no anomaly when he looked at the ghost head Willow. Accompanied by a wave of fatigue, information surged up. Enchanting Mirror, Yellow Level 1st Grade, 1. A magical artifact made of bronze, with a mirror surface inlaid with dead jade, and 3 talismans and enchanting patterns engraved on the back. After thousands of years of modeled, it has become incomplete. 2. Shadow and Shadow are born, misty and forgotten on the way home. Holding this mirror, with chi and blood as the guide, language induction, and the ability to use the sorcery. Enchanting Soul, Yellow Level 1st Grade. 3. Mirror lines are damaged, and those with strong willpower can resist. 4. Its previous owner, who used bronze mirrors to deceive people and seek benefits, was also addicted to desires and suffered from backlash and death magic tools. Zhang Biao's eyes were full of surprises. Although he has mastered the chi refining method of the 3 Yang Classic, he only has the 2nd grade of the yellow level, so it seems that he is not a high-end person. There is also very little knowledge about the realm of practice. For example, the jar of incense ash cannot be used properly, so it can only be placed under the bed to continue accumulating dust. Now, there has finally been a breakthrough. Mystery. Enchanting the Soul. Is this the title of the Cultivation World's technique? Why is it called the Mysterious Technique? It sounds a bit unlucky. Yellow Grade 1 product, the level is not high either. However, Zhang Biao was particularly surprised. According to the guidance of the spiritual eye, using a bronze mirror to cast this spell does not require any spells or true chi, but rather uses chi and blood as the guide and language induction. It's a bit like past life hypnosis. However, how should chi and blood be used as a guide? Zhang Biao originally intended to continue his research, but today he used his spiritual eye excessively, resulting in mental fatigue and waves of drowsiness. He simply warmed up the rest of the tonic diet and went to bed early. The bright moon shines on the window lattice, and his mind is full of thoughts. From the posthumous notes left by the cultivators in the 3 Yang Classic, it can be seen that the advent of the end of the Dharma era is a long period. Now that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is recovering, the momentum of the black sun and blood moon is not small. Although it may seem like the storm has calmed down, changes are quietly breeding. Ghost Head Willow in the Western market, Enchanting Mirror today alone, these 2 things have been discovered. This kind of change is expected to get bigger and bigger, and he has no idea what the future will be like. Fortunately, I have awakened my spiritual vision and made some preparations in advance to cope with future changes. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Witchcraft and Charming Eyes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 9. Shocking News of the Killing Cult. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Shocking news of the killing cult. It was the boy who was beaten that day. Zhang Biao was jealous and immediately recognized his identity. This little guy was extremely scared, trembling all over, and then his back was scratched by the dog-hole gravel without even paying attention, running desperately. But obviously, he is also a person with courage and strategy. Daring to return to the scene for investigation, he also made an evacuation plan, drilled a dog hole, turned left and right in the complex alley, and then ran towards an underground channel. There are open and hidden canals between various districts and cities in Yujing City, forming a dense network of waterways with the help of 4 canals that pass through the city. The inner courtyard of the palace has a dedicated closed waterway. But the people rely entirely on this water network for their water supply and sewage discharge. Open channels and vertical wells are used for water purification. An underground channel is used for sewage discharge. Although feces have a specialized fragrance that can be collected, made into fertilizer and sold for profit. But there is still sewage in the underground canal that accumulates year-round and smells unpleasant, with snakes, insects, mice, and ants living in it. At a glance, Zhang Biao knew what the other party wanted to do. This underground canal is connected to the Yongding Canal. After drilling in, one only needs to endure the foul odor and close their breath, and then they can follow the water flow into the canal and escape. It's quite clever. Zhang Biao chuckled inwardly, relying on his body movements to walk upstream of the abandoned house wall, watching the opportunity to jump down, while suddenly swinging his left arm. While the soul-summoning chain roared out, and the front gun twisted and shook its head like a spirit snake, instantly entangled the young man's right leg. With a thud, the young man fell hard and fell into the mud, then screamed and struggled with both hands before being pulled back. Shut up. Zhang Biao presented 6 bronze medals in the door. The young man immediately closed his mouth, his eyes full of suspicion. No wonder he was surprised. It was all because Zhang Biao appeared here, which was indeed somewhat unreasonable. This world may seem mixed, but in reality, there are clear barriers. Even if they walk on the same street and dine at the same small restaurant, they are still people from 2 different worlds. Chaotang and marketplace are always 2 separate ideologies. A balance of power and strategy is emphasized. One should learn etiquette, righteousness, benevolence, wisdom, and trustworthiness. Wolves and sheep form a set of order together. The rise and fall of a dynasty is the collapse and reformation of this order. However, the martial arts world is detached from this set of order. They have their own rules, and if they kill like before, they will digest it themselves, and the government will not come to inquire. The responsibility of the 6 gates is not to maintain order in the martial arts world, but to form a barrier between the martial arts world and the courtyards and markets. Gang fights are acceptable, but spying on political power is not. Fighting in the martial arts world is acceptable, but it cannot affect the people. This is also the reason why the 6 gates are called eagle dogs. What's the matter with you? You. The young man stuttered, seemingly panicked, but his eyes drifted and he was thinking of an escape strategy. What's your name? Zhang Biao said in a deep voice, My name is Chen. The young man opened his mouth and as soon as he replied, he saw something in Zhang Biao's hand shaking slightly. His head seemed frozen and his eyes gradually froze. What's your name? Zhang Biao held a psychedelic mirror and asked softly. This young man has been wandering in the martial arts world for a long time. Unless he is punished, he will not be able to tell him the truth at all. It is faster to use magical tools to inquire. Sure enough, the boy began to respond stiffly. My name is Tianyu. What kind of business do you make? Stealing graves and digging graves as a profession. Who killed those people? Yi Chonghui. Why did you take action? The master took us to dig the snake temple and found some artifacts. After those people came to steal them, they said they didn't want the news to leak out and then killed people to silence them. What is the snake temple? In Tuan village outside Yujing city, there is an ancient temple hidden in a cave on the back mountain. The temple has collapsed, with only half of a stone snake statue. The master's origin is unknown, so he called it the Snake God Temple. What have you all found? A bronze mirror, a stone incense burner. Where's the incense burner? They snatched the incense burner and said. Zhang Biao kept asking, and doubts arose in his heart. He knew that he was worshipping a great general named Yi Chong from the previous dynasty, who believed in bravery, martial arts, and righteousness. In fact, he was engaged in buying and selling loans to help others, and his influence was not small in the city of Yujing. Some casinos, Taoist temples, and even high-ranking officials are their customers, depositing money in the Yi Chong society, lending to the people, and collecting dividends on time. I don't know how many people, because their families are ruined and their lives are ruined. Speaking of which, I am also an old acquaintance. The several tragedies handled by Zhang Biao were all related to this Yi Chong society, and there were many conflicts with it. However, due to the protection of high-ranking officials and dignitaries, only some peripheral subordinates were cut off. Later, General Constable Guan was overwhelmed and handed over all the cases related to the Yi Chong society to another constable, prohibiting him from participating. That constable is a clever person, pretending to be deaf and mute, and showing filial piety with great joy. Some people in the 6 gates mocked him with this matter. Various clues suggest that the snake temple is related to monks. This Yi Chonghui, where did you get the news from? Revitalization of spiritual energy. I'm afraid not only do I know Zhang Biao was lost in thought and finally held the mirror in his hand, saying softly, you don't remember me. When you saw my master and junior brother die tragically, you planned to escape from the capital city and hide your name. After a long time, the boy slowly woke up. He looked at the empty dark alley, his eyes filled with fear, and he turned and jumped into the ditch returning to Anjin Fang. It was already sunset on the western mountain. Above the gatehouses of various markets, Marquis Wu vigorously struck the bronze bell, and the sound of the bell echoed throughout the city. This is a signal that the gate is about to close. Although Yujing City does not implement a curfew on weekdays, its gates will be closed as night falls. It is inconvenient to explain the reasons for any transactions and accept inquiries. Officials are good to say, but if the people encounter an unscrupulous martial lord, they will inevitably be extorted, so they usually don't go out after sunset. Therefore, the capital at night is a different world. Wang and Sun nobles, singing and dancing in the mansion. Rich officials and gentry, the brothels are filled with wine and meat. People in the martial arts world, blood splattered 5 steps on the long street. Before Zhang Biao arrived at the gate, he saw Wang Xian guarding the gate, holding a yarrow in his mouth, chatting casually with Marquis Wu. Brother Biao, you have come back. Wang Xian quickly stepped forward and frowned, saying, I haven't been at home all day. Did I have a familiar girl in taping Fang? That's necessary. Zhang Biao chuckled and patted Wang Xian's shoulder. Since you're here, come with me and have a drink, he said, let's talk about it another day. Wang Xian said with a bitter face, the chief constable, let's take turns on night patrols. It's still Huafeng who is in charge. That guy has a mindset of being a gold medal detective. Once caught slacking off, he will inevitably get beaten up. Zhang Biao was speechless. What else is the emperor doing? The 6 gates night patrol is nothing more than suppressing people in the martial arts world. The current emperor is the most prestigious. Every time there is a palace banquet, the chief constable Guan always sends them out to avoid any trouble caused by the wandering heroes in the martial arts world, which could lead to criticism from the 6 gates. Not on the emperor's side. Wang Xian looked around and then whispered, Brother Biao, do you still remember the Chen Hoa we caught? Zhang Biao nodded and said, it's just a lecherous thief. What kind of storm can it cause? He naturally doesn't have this ability. Wang Xian sneered and said, this guy has committed a crime and dares to run to the capital. The Black King of Hell, who is responsible for torture, has used more means to ask for a message. The killing cult has emerged again. What? Zhang Biao was shocked and suddenly felt his scalp tingling. No matter how ferocious the Yichong society may be, it will ultimately be a gang that seeks profit. It must be managed from top to bottom and dare not openly violate the laws and regulations of the court. But this killing cult is different. This is an ancient sect that behaves strangely and believes that everything can be obtained through killing. If you want money, just kill. To gain power, simply kill the opponent. As long as you join the killing cult, they will even send someone to help you complete it. But when you get used to these, you will find that there is nothing in heaven and earth that cannot be solved by killing. If there is, it is not enough killing. Once one gains glory, wealth, and status, they will gradually become numb, realizing that only killing can bring pure pleasure. Due to the collapse of the previous dynasty and the fragmentation of warlords and fiefdoms, many generals believed in the killing religion and enjoyed cooking and eating meat, making the 9 provinces like hell. Since the establishment of the Daliang dynasty, it has severely cracked down on the killing and killing cult. Once it is discovered that one believes in the cult, it is a crime that implicates the 9 ethnic groups. Even so, it cannot be cut off, just let it hide deeper. It can be said that the killing life cult was the demon cult of the Liang dynasty. Seeing Zhang Biao's appearance, Wang Xian smiled and said, actually, there's no need to worry too much. There are rumors about the resurgence of the killing cult every year. There are so many experts in the capital, and they are foolish enough to dare to come. What nonsense! Zhang Biao glared and scolded, maybe it's true this time. Be clever when patrolling the night, run away if you have anything to do. Wang Xian's father is under his father's command, and this kid has been following him since childhood, similar to his younger brother, so he naturally worries about his safety. Don't worry, brother Biao. Seeing Zhang Biao angry, Wang Xian also put aside his carefree demeanor and said in a deep voice, there is one more thing this time. Xiao San's case has been settled, and the Ministry of Justice will sentence him to be executed in 5 days. Well, I got it, be careful. Okay, brother Biao. After listening to some advice, Wang Xian turned around and left. Watching the other person's figure disappear, Zhang Biao looked up at the sky. The sun has set, and the night seems to cover most of the sky like a curtain. The moon is nowhere to be seen, and the stars are dim. The wind and rain are about to come. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Burial of Injustice in Loess. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors.